Hello and welcome to episode number 30 of the Hafey Digital Podcast, a show for creators, makers, and doers. My goal is to help you make to the max. My name is Ryan Hafey, and in this episode, we're going to be going through part 2 of my list of my favorite creators. Let's get right into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. So, by the way, if you are new to the channel here, if you're on YouTube especially, click that subscribe button and be sure to follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram and Twitter. And let's have a conversation over there. Let's see. Oh, man. I'm a little flustered today because we're doing things differently, which I'll get into here in a minute. But for starters, we got to talk about the sound of the week. Last week, I started the sound of the week, which is just basically a recording of some kind of camera or gear, some piece of equipment that I own that, some sort of common sound that you would hear. It could be a sound of a shutter. It could be a sound of like just some sort of beep that a particular camera or something makes. This week, in case you missed it in the intro, this is the sound. So if you think you know what that sound is, let me know and leave a comment or something. Put it in the chat, whatever you think it is. And at the end of this episode, I will reveal that, and then we'll have a new sound ready for next week. By the way, moving on from that, got to talk about, of course, the beverage for this week's podcast. This is a new one. I haven't tried this one before. This is the Blackberry Spindrift. Which I quite like. It's not clear. It's got a nice purple color to it, and it's quite refreshing. So that's the beverage for this week. What's next? So, yeah, what we're doing differently today is we are streaming currently to multiple locations. Right now, we are streaming to Facebook. We are streaming to, obviously, YouTube as usual. We are streaming to Twitter, and I don't think LinkedIn, actually, let me check. I don't think LinkedIn was set up because my understanding was it was something that they hadn't, it was in beta and you had to be approved for it. But let me see here. If I log in, if I go to my profile, does it show anything there? It does not. So it must not be going on LinkedIn, but that's okay. 3 out of 4 isn't too bad. But using a service called Restream, and Restream just, again, allows you to do basically what I just said. You can pick a number of different channels. In fact, I'll go ahead as long as there's no... Okay. So this is Restream. Let's get the screen going here. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, so I'll pop myself in the corner so you can kind of see what's going on. There's a little bit of a delay, but this is kind of This is the dashboard, I guess you would say. This is where you go in to add the different channels that you want to stream to. I'm a little afraid to poke around too much in here for fear of messing something up, because this is literally the first time I'm using it. But you kind of get the idea there. So let's bring this back over here and turn off the screen. Perfect. So this is interesting. This is something been toying with a little bit, and I actually may make a tutorial about this after I've gotten a little bit more time under my belt with it, because it's interestingly all the FAQs and the help info on the Restream website, and it's restream.io, by the way. It's all like text-based. At least their own help stuff is all text-based. So I went to YouTube to try to find some other different tutorials to help me figure out a couple things. Like one thing that was a little unclear was, after you get everything set up, which is pretty simple, how do you actually initiate the live stream? So I had to go through and do a couple tests to figure that out, because none of the videos that I found really illustrated that very well. But we got it going, and it's really easy, and it's free to a certain point. And then if you want to throw in, say, like a Facebook page or another custom feed that you want to use, it would cost you a little bit. But even then, I don't think it's all that expensive. So it's pretty cool. So far, I'm liking it. Might have to keep doing this. in the same vein, another piece of software that I played around with this week a little bit was Streamlabs OBS. Now, Streamlabs OBS is different from OBS, just the regular OBS, in that my guess is that it's more for like gaming streamers, and like it has a lot of templates and things that you can use. There are some paid options that are built into it, so obviously it seems like more of their money-making side of OBS, I guess. But there are different templates to where you can, have different frames and things like that. I didn't play around with that a ton, but I did do a test live stream with it, and it was pretty much just as simple as the regular OBS is. And the nice thing is if you download Streamlabs OBS and you already had the regular OBS installed, you're given the option to transfer all these settings over, so you don't have to go through and put in all your new values and everything like that. So from what I played with it, it's not something that I would see myself using too much. I'm the kind of person who would rather make my own like little animations and things like that and overlays for my live streams versus using a template. That's just, I'm kind of the same way when it comes to like color grading and using LUTs or presets and things like that. I don't like buying them. I like to make it my own and not say just slap someone else's preset on it and call it a day. I don't know. That's just me. No offense to anyone out there who does that. It's totally up to you. But so yeah, so Streamlabs OBS. Anyway, with all of that said, let's jump into the main theme for today's episode, which again is I'm going to be going through the second half of my list of my favorite creators on YouTube and beyond. And if you watched last week's episode, the list was really just super random and it just kind of went down the list. This week, the list is a little more curated and categorized, I guess you could say. And also, I planned ahead and put all the links to every channel that I'm going to discuss in the description below. So if I talk about them and you want to go check them out, just head down to the description and click the link. So let's jump right into it. First one, and I'm just going to open it right from here. Boom. Let's go to the screen here. Perfect. First one is Justin Odisho. Now, Justin Odisho, he's been around for a while. He's got 790,000 subscribers, and Justin's kind of it's an interesting channel in that he's not a super charismatic guy. There's nothing, there's no frills in his content. It's just sort of cut and dry to the point. Here's what it is. And what he does is basically tutorials, After Effects, Photoshop, Premiere, and they're very well outlined tutorials, very clearly instructed. Like right now, or at least for the past number of months at least, I think he's been going through and doing in Premiere and in After Effects, and I think in Photoshop now too. Let's see, every effect in Adobe Premiere explained. So he did a series where he went through all the built-in effects in Premiere and explained like what each of them does and shows you how they work. He did the same thing with After Effects. He's doing the same thing with Photoshop right now. So if you're someone who's just getting started, or if you're like, what does this particular effect do? Definitely go check him out, because he's got tons of great content on his channel. And again, it's just where you go if you want some really quick and informative info related to just the Adobe suite, typically for the most part. He does some other things outside of that, but anything you want to know within the Adobe suite, Lightroom, all that kind of stuff, he's your guy. All right, so that's Justin Odisho. Let's go to the next one, which is Becky and Chris. So Becky and Chris, a couple, they are 216,000 subscribers on YouTube. They're an interesting couple in that I think if I understand correctly, Becky is the one who's more focused on, or she kind of was the originator of the channel, and she's more the creative, camera editor, that type of thing. Chris, her husband, also does some of that, but he's interesting in that not only is he a successful YouTuber, he is a helicopter pilot, and he's also a radiologist. And he also flies and builds his own drones, which I think he started doing that within the past year or so. But a lot of good stuff on their channel. If it's not entertaining, it's informative. So put them on your list. Check them out. I really like the stuff that they're doing. Next up, we got to talk about this guy, Mr. Brandon Lee. Brandon, if you're not familiar with him, you should be. He is more on the filmmaking side, also does a lot of great tutorials, especially a lot of great content around gimbals. He's kind of made paved out a niche for himself in the gimbal, as the gimbal guy, basically. So every now and then he'll throw up these tutorials, but he also makes a lot of these really, really awesome films. Soul Wave, SEOUL Wave, was one of his probably most popular ones. I actually did a video, probably, I don't know, a couple years ago at this point, where I recreated just one little, his videos are filled with all these really creative transitions. But there was this one cool effect where traffic was traveling in two directions, and at one point the traffic on one side speeds up, and then the other side it speeds up, it was obviously done in post, but I figured out how to recreate that and made a video. That was probably one of my more fun videos to do. But long story short, if you're looking for some creative inspiration, some great filmmaking chops, or some information on gimbals, Brandon Lee, there's your guy. Let's go to the next one. Who we got? Craig Adams. Go to the link. There we go. Craig Adams. So this is another filmmaker, and he lately, meaning within probably the past at least year, if not more, he's been focusing a lot on these sort of travel films where there'll be long hikes and things like that. And he films them all solo. And the interesting thing about him is that, whereas a lot of creators are really trying to focus on the high energy, keep everyone's attention, move it along, type of format, he has sort of flipped that. And instead of creating, these 10-minute, highly informative, highly entertaining videos, and then they're still entertaining, but he's posting these, 16 minutes and 22 seconds, 12 minutes and 44 seconds, 20 minutes, 58 seconds. So some longer form videos. This one's over 30 minutes. And they're just of him walking these trails and experiencing these adventures. But the way that he puts them together, his framing, some of his drone work and his camera work, and just the colors, and how it couples with the music, it's very calm. It's very... it's something you can just sit and watch the entire way through and not like completely forget where the time goes. But also watch them and be like, wow, I really want to go there. Like, he really documents these things incredibly well. And they're so simple, but so impactful. So yeah, definitely worth a look. Check them out. If you just kind of want some creative inspiration, or if you just kind of want to relax, just sit back and watch something relaxing, go check out Craig's channel. By the way, all of these that I'm mentioning up front here, these are in the kind of photo, video editing, filmmaking category. And then we'll move on from there after a few more here. So that's Craig Adams. Next up, we have Daniel Schiffer. Now, Daniel Schiffer, if you don't know, he's really come a long way. I think I probably found him when he was closer to 100,000 subscribers, and now he's up to 1.25 million. What he's kind of most known for right now is he does a lot of these really creative, he'll do a lot of these fake commercials where, he might be doing like an ad for like a bottle of Bailey's or something like that, or, pizza, or just a lot of these different products and things like that. And he'll use these cool transitions, and he'll do breakdowns of all these videos that he does. And he does a lot of really cool sound design. He's recently done some work with Peter McKinnon, which I'm sure kind of shot him up in the subscriber base a little bit. Yeah, especially if you're producing video work for companies and small business, things like that, especially restaurants, check him out and look at some of the stuff that he's doing, because he may have some tips for you that you could take away. Daniel Schiffer. All right, next up, got to mention, nope, that's still Daniel. Where's it? There we go. Next up, we got to mention Mr. Maddie Papaya, of course. Now, Maddie, if you aren't aware, is also a filmmaker. His channel used to be called Travel Feels. He was primarily a travel channel or a travel YouTuber, I guess you would call it, right? And he's made documentaries. A lot of his work, actually, speaking of Peter McKinnon, a lot of his teachings have rubbed off on Peter. He's taught Peter a lot of the things that a lot of techniques and things like that. So Peter can actually credit some of his success to Maddie. But once again, a lot of good gear reviews and tutorials and breakdowns and occasional films and documentaries there. So I got a chance to meet Maddie, by the way, at NAB last year. Nice guy. He helped me out with an awkward video that I made at NAB. So good dude. All right, the last one that I'm going to mention in this category has to go to... Why did that open over there? That's weird. Mr. Dan Mace. Dan Mace, I learned about him originally through Casey Neistat. Him and Dan are very good friends. And Dan he's one of the more creative channels out there. I don't know where his inspiration comes from or where he gets some of the ideas that he gets. And I really can't explain much beyond that. You just kind of have to watch his videos and see what I'm talking about. But he does, if you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, go check him out. You're not going to find too many tutorials there, but you're going to find a lot of inspiration and you're going to be highly entertained. Speaking of entertainment, that's a good segue into the next category, which is entertainment. These are YouTubers that I watch when I'm bored or just because they make funny stuff. So the first one we got to go with here is Internet Comment Etiquette. And it's kind of difficult to explain exactly, excuse me, these sparkling waters there, yeah. Give me the burps. It's kind of difficult to explain what he does, but I mean, basically he goes online and gets into comment sections on Instagram or on like YouTube and Facebook and things like that, and just sort of grills the undereducated, I guess you could say, of the world. And I really don't know what to say beyond that. It's incredibly funny. He's super witty. He's obviously a talented writer and has done some funny stuff. So go check him out. Internet Comment Etiquette. Next up, Churdleys. Now these guys have some of the strangest content. It's sort of like the old school, like sketch comedy on YouTube. They just recently passed 1 million subscribers, but they do some of the most insane, out there sketches, and a lot of it looks improvised, but at the same time, it looks entirely thought through, which again, I don't really know how to elaborate on it, and I can't really explain the type of content. I just want to see what he has in his about page. Let me see here. Welcome to my channel. All videos are written, directed by Churdleys, but with special improvised moments by some of the funniest talent on the internet. That's pretty accurate. So you'll see occasionally some other channels, notable creators pop in. For example, right here, you've got Gus Johnson, looks like, another funny sketch comedy YouTuber. I would say that their comedy is probably not for everyone, and I think it took me a little bit to really get into their stuff, but once I got into it, I was hooked. All right, let's move on to William Osmond. Actually, this guy and the next guy are both kind of in the same vein. I guess he's a mechanical engineer, but he makes a bunch of really funny and useless stuff. And that's really the bulk of it. They did they got a few people together and they made like battle Roombas, and what else did they do? They do a lot of these egg drop challenges where they try to build these contraptions under crazy restrictions and drop eggs, or put eggs in them and drop them off the roof to see if they break. And it's funny. So in that same vein, and actually I believe for a little while they were roommates, is Michael Reeves. Michael Reeves is another engineer, and he does a lot of coding, and he's very vulgar, and he makes these outrageous contraptions. For example, I think one of his more popular videos, which has 17 million views as of this point, was a Roomba that screams and yells obscenities when it bumps into things. And that's really all you really need to know about his channel. Everything is a lot like that. So, Michael Reeves, check him out. Last one on this list is Weezy Waiter. I followed this guy for a while, actually, and he does a lot of challenges and things like that. Like he'll, I took, let's see, he went no sugar for a month, vegan for a month. Why do people like college? Meditating every day for a month. Little challenges and things like that, which in and of themselves do not sound super interesting. But when you factor in his editing style is very interesting. He has a very unique way of making his videos and kind of tying the whole story together. So I watch partly for the challenge part, partly for the intrigue of like, okay, how did he handle this? But I probably mostly watch it for just how he crafts his stories. Weezy Waiter, that's the end of the entertainment category. Next up, we have the creatively inspiring category. And the first in this category here is Bill Warts. Now, I'm upset to say that he has not produced a video for about a year, and ironically, the last video that he made was called Might Quit. So if you're not familiar with Bill Warts, first of all, the first video of his that you should watch is called, I think it's called the History of the World, I guess, or something like that. It's about a 20-minute video that is unfathomably good. He basically, and my understanding is that he does all these himself, and he literally edits on a laptop. He has this really quirky, unique editing style that, again, looks simple but also incredibly complex. But this History of the World video, he literally does a breakdown of the start of the universe to now. How did the Earth form, evolution, all the way up until, the history of Earth and civilization and everything like that. And it's got like musical aspects to it, and it's just absolutely mind-blowing. And then outside of that, he composes a lot of these songs that are sort of incredibly random, but also very musically good. So again, another guy you got to check out. Another creatively inspiring creator has to be this guy, Wintergotten. That's the name of the channel. That's the name of a band. And as you can kind of see here, this guy has, and there was a video a while ago, it's been a few years at least, where he created, I'm going to have to find it. Hang on. Let's see. Marble. Bear with me. It's coming. Okay. So, kind of see here. Oops. There we go. So this was his first, this was kind of the prototype, but this is a music machine. This is what he called the marble machine. And by turning a crank, he has a guitar over here that he can manually press the frets on. He had a crank over on the side, and depending on which, certain levels that he pulled, he could initiate or stop certain instruments. Marbles would literally be carried through this machine and dropped on the xylophone, or dropped onto the strings of the guitar, or, you know, drop down to percussion instruments that he had on there. And this in just by itself is incredible, but he decided apparently that that wasn't enough, and he wanted to make a new version of it that was much better, that he could, once it's done, take on a world tour with his band. And he's been documenting the whole process of building it, and he's been building it with a number of different engineers across basically the world. And this is what it looks like now. This is the new and improved Marble Machine X, I believe he called it. Excuse me. And like, I remember a number of years ago, probably at least like 10 years now, there were these videos that were released where someone animated a series of different like music machines, and they were made. I'm here. No, I didn't say Siri. Siri thinks I'm talking to her. They animated these series of music machines that used marbles, and this machine would shoot out these marbles, and they would bounce off of drums, and they would bounce off of xylophones and things like that. And I always thought that was really cool. And I don't know if that's where he got the inspiration from for this machine, but it's strikingly similar, and it works very similar to the way that these, you know, computer animated videos did. So the fact that someone actually decided, I mean, look at the mechanics of that. And it's all of this is done by just turning a crank and turning certain levels to turn parts of it on and off. And it's insane to me. So he posts new videos about documenting his progress every Wednesday. I bought a shirt of his, which is like, the shirt is like the blueprint, the original blueprint of the Marble Machine X. Crazy to me. So definitely worth a follow. Winter Garden, check him out. What else? What's this one? Oh, Captain Disillusion. This guy's great. So he doesn't upload videos all too often. Actually, he's pushing 2 million subscribers now, which is great. Last one was 3 weeks ago. Before that, 2 months, and then 7 months, 8 months. So he's not an incredibly regular uploader, but if you see his content, you'll understand why. He animates. He does these just crazy basically what he does is he will find videos online that appear to be fake. For example, there was this video like construction where the construction workers were doing all these tricks with like tape measures and things like that, and throwing the tape measure and grabbing keys or knocking stuff off, you know, shelves and things like that. And he goes in and like frame by frame just dissects not only was it fake, how is it faked, you know, what did they do to fake it. Sometimes he'll reconstruct his own versions of what they did. Just incredibly well thought out. The guy definitely obviously knows what he's talking about. He's got this kind of quirky costume and face makeup that he wears, but very good at just sort of grabbing you as soon as the video starts and holding your attention the entire time. So check him out. And from there, let's move on into the educational category here. We've got 3 more creators to talk about here. The first being Psych IRL. So I guess you could consider this education in a way. Basically what she does is she sort of analyzes the YouTube universe from a psychological perspective. You know, she'll do documentaries on different creators, and you know, like Shane Dawson. How did he get to his level, and what types of content has he done? How does he go about creating his content, and how is it resonating with people? And she'll just sort of break down different creators and kind of get to the bottom of why they are the way they are, and why they've experienced the things that they've experienced, and why, you know, fans react to them and the way that they react. Just kind of an interesting psychological look, and she presents it very well. And actually her content has gotten, it's evolved quite a bit since I started watching it in a good way. So definitely one to check out. Next, up. This one, Curious Droid. So this is, if you're into things like, you know, nuclear bombs, or just like kind of understanding them, or like, you know, let's see, let me look at some of his video titles. The F-35, why is it the best fighter in the world today? And that's a 14-minute video. And I haven't seen that one, but I assume that he goes into the deep history of what the F-35 is, where it came from, how much it cost, where it was built, why it's the best in the world, how it compares to other fighter jets and things like that. He just goes into an insane amount of detail in each and every one of his videos. Hypersonic missiles versus ICBMs, which is better, and how the atomic race was won. So just a lot of interesting videos in the realm of kind of like military technology, space, all that kind of stuff. So good stuff there. And finally, not related to Curious Droid at all, but still very informative and interesting. Jeff Nippard. Nippard. I don't know that I've ever narrowed down how to pronounce his last name. But Jeff is, I've gone through kind of a fitness journey myself over the last probably, what is it now? About 12 years or so, 11, 12 years. I mean, I used to weigh close to 250 pounds with no muscle. And, you know, I've come a long way taking off a lot of that weight and building a lot of muscle since then. And while his channel hasn't been around for 12 years, it has been around since I started really getting interested in weightlifting and strength training. And as you can see, he's obviously got a physique for it, but he's also got a degree of some kind. Let me see. I'm a Canadian natural pro bodybuilder and internationally qualified power lifter with a, let me give you the, with a BCS in biochemistry and chemistry and a passion for science. So his videos are, again, presented very well. He includes a lot of interesting animations in them, but he also backs up all of his assertions with studies. So he builds a lot of trust with his audience in that sense. And I've gotten a lot of good information because I've never, I mean, I used to work out at a gym, but I've never had a personal trainer or everything like that. Everything that I've learned to do has really just been self-taught or from, you know, getting information from guys like Jeff on the internet. But all of his information is just very well backed up by science, very well presented. And if you are interested really in just about anything having to do with building strength, even, you know, in the realm of nutrition, he's definitely someone you want to check out. He's got a large body of work, as you can see here. So go check him out. And that is it. That is my final list. I'm sure I missed some people. I'm sure that there are some other creators that I am following on a normal basis, but that's all I can come up with. If you want to see the rest of the list, go back to last week's episode and check the description there for another list. As I mentioned previously, I was originally going to do a video where I just said, hey, here's my top 5 or so creators. And as I went through the list, I'm like, there's no way that I can do that because there are so many out there that I'm a huge fan of. I would love to know who your favorite creators are. So if you have someone that's on your list that you think I might enjoy based on what I've shown you here today, leave me a comment. I would love to check them out. And by the way, if you're still here with me and if you haven't done so already, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And of course, go follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Ryan Hafey. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this one done. So keep